Welcome to the Cynic's Guide to Hippie Shit.
Thank you.
So we are going to be talking today about hypnotherapy and what it is and what, what it is, how it's different to hypnosis, and how and whether people should get involved. So tell us a bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and tell us about hypnotherapy.
Yeah, so thanks, Rachel. So I'm Stephen Hardy. I live in Durham now. I'm originally from Durham, so from the northeast, but like a lot of people do, I moved down south in inverted commas 20 odd years ago to pursue a career, and I was working in the technology sector, so for American technology companies. And then around about 3, 4 years ago, I realized that I was feeling really burnt out, flat, anxious, and had been for some time. And I decided that with following on from COVID and there's various different things going on in my life and the company that I worked at, I decided to take some leave, and then I decided that I wanted to pursue a completely different career. I always knew that I wanted to help people and I wanted to work with people, and I was always interested in how the human brain works. I was
Mm.
always interested in the stage hypnotherapists. Like I grew up with Paul McKenna and more recently Darren Brown, and out of the two, Darren Brown is the one that I particularly like, even though that doesn't really represent what I do in any form at all.
Oh,
But I was really fascinated with that. And yeah, I just knew that I wanted to help people who were going through a similar situation to what I experienced. So I started doing some research, and I had some, I can't remember whether psychiatrists or psychologists for the NHS, one of the two. I can never remember which ones they were, but people who were loosely connected to me, the sister of a friend, and a lady that my wife knows. I spoke to them, and they pointed me towards something called solution focused hypnotherapy, which combines an element of talking therapy and then hypnotherapy. So I trained in that for a year, and quite an intense course, but it was something that I was just from day one. I was like the SWAT. I was in the front seat in the class with my hand up, asking all the questions, which was totally the opposite to how I was at school and university, and I really loved it. And I've been doing that since. So I run a business called Navigate the Curve, and the basis of the business is to help people to navigate difficult times, and like I had, and maybe change careers. But the kind of starting point is to help you get back on your feet from a mental health and a mindset perspective. So I mean, the kind of people that I work with are people who struggle with mild to moderate mental health issues. So, mild to moderate anxiety, depression, burnout, phobias, and anxiety, massive umbrella of different symptoms as well that brings up. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
thanks for that, Steve. It was interesting you mentioned Paul McKenna and Darren Brown, both people that probably most people who are watching will be familiar with. And I'm slightly obsessed with both of them, actually.
Yes.
I use Paul McKenna's meditation,
Mhm.
well, guided trances
Yeah.
several times a week or go through phases. And Darren Brown, I think, is amazing. I've been to see him a couple of times. The first time I went to see him, I was so desperate for it to work, so desperate to kind of like get taken in by something. And I went in. It was the Theatre Royal in Newcastle. I walked in, looked at the sides. I was like, right, there's numbers there. That's going to mean something. And I sat there really intensely, trying too hard. And then the finale was something to do with the numbers on the side. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I totally ruined it for myself because I tried too hard. And
Yeah.
then I went to see him again a couple of years ago, and it was his most recent show, and basically somehow in the course of he does ask you not to tell people. Basically, in the course of the show, 30 seconds got lost from my memory.
Wow. Yeah. Mm.
And I was there with my colleague, and we both looked at each other and went, he's played a trick here,
Yeah.
because it's not going to work on us. And then we were chatting to the people in front of us, who were like, "Oh no, no, did you?" Because it hadn't worked on them. The people in
Yeah.
front of us were like, "Oh no, he did this, 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 and this." And did you not see it? We're like, "No." So weird.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, trance is an incredible thing, but it's also a very normal thing. So we all go into trance all the time. So one of I was living in London, I think I mentioned that before, and one of my good friends was with his new girlfriend, saw me in the street, and I was walking down the street with my wife and my son. And he came up to me in the street. I was thinking about something that I needed to do later on that day. And he came up to me in the street and he stood in front of me waving at me in the street. And I walked straight past him, and I have no recollection of him doing that at all. And he felt, the poor guy felt embarrassed because he was with his new girlfriend and he was wanting to introduce a friend. But we all go into trance all the time, several times a day. And as a therapist, I go into trance when I'm working with clients as well. So I'll go often, and you might not realize it, but I guess that you may well go into trance as well when you're working with clients or other things. There's a really I'm reading one of Milton Erickson's books, or a book written about him. Milton Erickson being kind of like the godfather of hypnotherapy and a really famous psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And he talks about a story when he was really nervous about meeting this client because he knew the client was far more intelligent than he was, a really sharp guy. And the way he describes him, he doesn't actually explicitly say this, but he sounds like he might have psychopathic tendencies, this client. But he said he's doing the initial consultation with the client and he's taking notes. And then he said he looks up at the clock and he realizes two hours have passed by and the client's left the room, and he's been in a trance himself and done the whole session in a trance. And that sounds really far-fetched, but I go into trance all the time, especially in the latter part of the session when I am actually doing trance with clients.
So
And I
what
get
is
these.
trance? So we've mentioned
Yeah.
trance a few times now. What actually do we mean by that?
Yeah, so trance is just where the conscious and the subconscious minds come together and focus. So it's a relaxed, focused state. So I've heard some people describe it as being like the flow state we get when we're doing something that we really love, are really engrossed in if you're an artist and you're really just engrossed in that activity and you lose yourself in the moment, and before you know it, hours have passed by, and you have that sense of just like a really pleasant, relaxed but focused state. It's like that. And people experience it in different ways. So I have clients who are very conscious throughout the whole thing. I have clients who go into a deep state and they'll come out at the end and be like, "Wow, what happened?" And then I have clients in between that, and then I have some that experience it one way one week and the other way the other week. So we all experience it differently, but it is a very normal state. It's not something to be. I think it's been misrepresented in the media by the people that we mentioned before, um, stage hypnotists. But yeah, it's just a relaxed, focused state.
So what is the difference between what you do
Mhm.
and so what is hypnotherapy? What is hypnosis? What is the difference between what you do and, you know, Darren Brown getting someone to eat an onion on stage like it's an apple,
Yeah,
or kind of going, and I can't even click my fingers, I couldn't do
yeah.
it.
You're in.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like suddenly they're lying down and they're,
yeah,
being wheeled off. Like what's the difference? What is it that you do that's
yeah.
different?
Well, he does have respect for Darren Brown, because he isn't just a stage hypnotist. He's also a therapist, and he's also someone who um, works hard to discredit things that are not, you know, the things that we might describe as genuine woo-woo things. So what is the difference? Well, stage hypnotists in general, and Darren Brown would be one of this when he's wearing his stage hypnotist hat. They would look for the people in the audience who are highly suggestible, And there's a certain percentage of, I have clients who are highly suggestible, and I have clients whereby I genuinely could tell them, if I was talking to them, I could just say, what you don't realize is that already you're in a hypnotic state, and you can prove that to yourself by closing your eyes now. And they'll just close their eyes and they'll be under like that because they're highly suggestible. And that's nothing to do with me. That's just who they are. Um, so the stage hypnotists would be are very good at choosing those people. That's one thing. And the second thing is they choose people who want to perform on the stage, because you can't make anyone do anything that they don't want to do under hypnotic trance. It's just impossible. If you said anything that contradicted someone's values or went against what they wanted to do, that like that, they'd snap straight out of it. They'd be wide awake. Um, so yeah, it's a combination of those two things. It's choosing the right people. And also there is also with everything a placebo effect. So there's a placebo effect. But with doctors, they have that white coat. When a doctor gives you a diagnosis, you believe it because they have the white coat, they have the credentials. I'm not discrediting modern medicine in any way because I completely subscribe to it. But there is that placebo effect that comes with it. When we take, I took a couple of paracetamol last night because I had an ulcer in my mouth. The reason why we take 2 tablets is because it's shown to have a stronger placebo effect than just taking 1 tablet. So placebo is everywhere. So there is a placebo effect to them being the great Derren Brown and the great Paul McKenna. But yeah, what differs with me is that I don't I don't get people to eat raw onions. I don't get them to dance like chickens. I just I use the hypnotic state to enable people to get the best out of their mind, to be able to continue the process that we've started with the talking therapy, and be able to um, delve into their subconscious minds to come up with solutions, answers, to uncover resources and capabilities that they might have forgotten that they already have, and also to relax them, to process stress. It's really good at doing that. We often don't find the time to bored these days. I remember being bored all the time when I was a kid. In fact, I can remember exactly what the wallpaper on my bedroom ceiling looks like in my bed, because I just remember staring at it for what felt like hours on end. But we don't get bored these days. We've got phones constantly pinging away. We've got access to every single thing you could ever imagine. And we're trained to want to look constantly for stimulus. But being bored is really important because our mind goes into like a screensaver or a resting state, and it's actually working really hard behind the scenes, kind of pulling things together and processing things, processing negative thoughts that are built up throughout the day, you know, anxieties, thinking about things clearly, rationally, coming up with solutions, all that kind of stuff. And we just don't have that opportunity in our modern crazy lifestyles. So that when people go into a trance state, that also gives them that opportunity to do a bit of processing as well.